Get cool stuff for what you were going to do anyway. Drink beer. With Buy Beer, Get Gear from Labatt, you can just snap a photo of your receipt and upload it to the website to rack up points for exclusive merch. Get points for every purchase, whether you're grabbing a pint on draft, a case for a party, or a tall boy at the stadium. Any size, any product, anywhere you buy Labatt. Buy beer, get gear. Sign up now at rewards.labattusa.com.
Radio.
Hey, Dabo Sweeney, congrats. I got you in, baby.
This is entertainment. People pay to watch this.
Pass to a cutting Hiltz. He darts in. Oh!
People actually subscribe.
All across central New York.
Time expired! Syracuse has done it!
It's Drive Time with your host, Tim Leonard.
Hey, guess what? I'm getting one. Hey!
We welcome you into Drive Time. Tuesday afternoon in central New York. 1 week from the opening of the transfer portal. The exact midway point of the men's basketball transfer portal. April 7th it opened. April 21st it closes. It's speed dating in the middle and trying to figure out who you can get to come play basketball for you in the new day and age of college basketball and college athletics. Jerry McNamara in Syracuse working like heck, I'm sure, to try and put together the best roster possible, get back to the NCAA tournament, snap this 5-year drought of missing the NCAA tournament next season. And we'll continue to discuss the transfer portal on our show today, of course. 437-7644 if you want to chime in. For ESPN 44. Phone lines open throughout our entire hour with you this afternoon. Q Sports Talk chat. I'll be taking your questions. Live chat of our live simulcast where you can watch the show. QSportsTalk.com on our Twitch stream. If you're ever on the go, keep that in mind. You can get it on your phone wherever you are. QSportsTalk.com. You can also find us on our YouTube page, Q Sports Talk on the YouTube page. Tim Leonard with you on Drive Time, 5 to 6 p.m. weekday afternoons. You can listen to the show in podcast platform afterwards. The entirety of the show, no breaks on our podcast feed. Just search ESPN Syracuse /Utica Rome on the podcast feed. And we will be diving into the latest happenings in the transfer portal today on our Burdick BMW of Cicero and Burdick Toyota opening drive. First off, Ryan Mesh has officially committed to Syracuse basketball. He announced that on his Instagram page. Much like Gavin Doty, he had a nice photo of a young Ryan Mesh supporting Cuse, the Chittenango point guard who was at one time the highest ranked commit in Siena basketball history, a 4-star top 150 player in the class, 6-foot point guard, has committed to Syracuse this afternoon. So like Gavin Doty, we kind of knew about that one all along. You can now put that one in ink and put them in pen or Sharpie or whatever for the roster next season. And we can get into today, what type of role should we expect from Ryan Mesh, the Chittenango product, next season for Syracuse basketball? In his freshman season, will he crack the rotation? Will he be playing 10, 20, 25 minutes a game? We can hash that out. And if you'd like to call in, if you've seen Ryan Mesh play in person and you have thoughts, give us a ring at 315-437-7644. We can also tell you that John Rothstein is reporting that Caden Mingo is visiting Oklahoma. And the sweepstakes for the Mingo brothers has ratcheted up after Dylan Mingo announced that he is opening his commitment from UNC last night. UNC's wording is that they parted ways with the 5-star point guard who is from Long Island Lutheran, played with Kyan Anthony in high school, also played with his brother Caden Mingo, who played at Penn State last season, where Jamal Brunt, the associate head coach for Penn State, now a new assistant for Syracuse basketball, coached and recruited Caden Mingo. So there's an obvious connection there. There's some links, like the JP Estrella thing. That does not mean that he's coming to Syracuse. Actually, in fact, right now, I would say it is very, very unlikely that either of the Mingo brothers come to Syracuse. It does not feel like there's room in the backcourt. It does not feel like they're really in the price point, honestly, for Syracuse. and Caden Mingo is visiting Oklahoma, and the list of schools and the chatter around them is not leading to Syracuse's name coming up. Never say never, but I would be pretty shocked if we hear of the Mingo brothers playing basketball next year for Syracuse. We're all hoping that Jerry McNamara and his staff tie up this transfer portal with 1 week left by bringing in some talented guys, some big names. We're focused on the center position. We're still talking a little bit about could they, should they expand the guard and the backcourt rotation based on what they have brought in to this point. I can tell you that I've been able to confirm, we were chatting about this name a little bit during the Orange Nation show earlier, and those of you that were in the Q Sports Talk chat, we have one chatter, Gavendo, who kind of hinted at this initially. I've been able to confirm that they do have a center on campus right now who is visiting, and that is Owen Freeman, who played last season for Creighton. Owen Freeman also played for Iowa for 2 seasons. Very highly thought of portal addition for Creighton last year. You look at his numbers, and there was a sizable drop-off from what he was giving Iowa from a points per game, minutes per game, rebounds per game perspective to Creighton. He had an injury early on at Creighton last year, never really bounced back, it seems like, from that injury. He still grades out as someone that has tremendous defensive metrics and grades out as someone that honestly fits the molds of what Jerry McNamara is looking for. So there could be some post-type sleeper to him. There could be some undervaluing of him because of the injury last year. Depends on how you look at it. Really, we're in the beauty of in the eye of the beholder season right now. Some of you are going to hear that name and you're going to say, that's not a splash. That's not a cannonball. That's not good enough, GMAC. We need a center that is all conference. That's a superstar. That is a $3-4 million player. We've talked about this a lot. The market is going crazy for big men right now. And if they are going the route of Owen Freeman, who is the Creighton transfer center in the portal that is visiting Syracuse today, maybe that lends you to believe they might be looking for 2 good centers and not 1 great center, which is what Kevin Sweeney of Sports Illustrated kind of theorized might be the move for Syracuse going forward. You could also phrase it as 2 good big men, and then you get into the conversation of, is Francis Folafak a good big man? Could it be Folafak and Freeman that are coming over? How many players do they need to add the rest of the way in the transfer portal is another conversation that we can get into, and what positions are they looking for? So certainly feel free to call in if you have thoughts on Owen Freeman and him visiting, and if that would be a good addition for Syracuse in this offseason. If he is starting caliber center level, is it going to be more of the same conversation we had about Garway Dual, who is the McNeese State transfer point guard that they have acquired to this point? We can discuss where and how Syracuse might expand their roster as we enter the midway point of the transfer portal. 315-437-7644 if you'd like to call in this afternoon. Let's discuss Ryan Mesh, though. We've talked about him a little bit. He has committed as of today to Syracuse, flipping his commitment in a way from Siena following GMAC to Syracuse. The strengths and weaknesses of Ryan Mesh's game: a 6-foot point guard, 170 pounds, the number 141st recruit in his class, this class, according to 247sports.com. His strengths: he's got a great feel for the game, according to kind of the scouting reports you read up on him. Watching the film, he's very good in pick and roll situations, very crafty, really a smart, advanced basketball mind for a high school senior. And certainly you have to keep in mind when you watch the film on him, the level of competition in some of these clips, his numbers at the AAU circuit, and kind of playing when he went against tougher competition. He sort of struggled from three-point range in those games. The book on him is he is a good shooter. He can shoot off the dribble. He can shoot standstill threes. He is someone that is probably better than his three-point numbers indicate to this point. Now, we have said that about a lot of players, and the hope is that a lot of these guys on the roster for next season are going to see a spike or at least a little bit of an uptick in their three-point percentage and their three-point production. And that's natural to hope for, I think, considering that Jerry McNamara is on staff, considering Ryan Daly is on staff, considering we are optimistic about the coaching acumen and just the overall X's and O's and offensive mindset and style that Syracuse is going to be bringing to the table next season. I think it's fair to say, unfortunately, right now, it feels like Syracuse's roster is probably not going to be as talented as last year. That could change. We're still at the midway point of the portal. There could be more information out there that we're not privy to, but based on the context clues of who they have on campus, who that has visited so far, etc., it just feels like we're trending towards a roster that is maybe a much better culture fit for Syracuse, maybe a better group in terms of playing together. Maybe the pieces work together better, but I'm not sure it's going to be quote-unquote as talented as last year's roster. We'll see how it all plays out. Ryan Mesh is a talented player, though. He's not going to knock your socks off. He's not going to come in here and start right away, I don't think. But he's not also just some local player that's getting the nod to Syracuse because GMAC wants to stay loyal to him. He had an offer from Providence. His recruiting ranking indicates that he is very much the caliber of player that can compete and play at the Power 4 level. He's a streaky shooter, like we mentioned, but the book is he can get hot from three. He's got a really good motor. We've said that about pretty much every single GMAC edition so far. I don't think I've ever used the word motor as much as I have in the last month. But when you think of GMAC, you think of his motor. And when you think of Siena last year, their entire team played with a great motor. It seems like GMAC is bringing in guys that have the right identity, the right personality, the right traits you want for getting better and working hard and playing together as a team. Weaknesses for Ryan Mesh, the 6-foot Chittenango point guard who has committed to Syracuse as of today, finally becoming official. He's undersized, not a dynamic athlete, and there's a little bit of a question mark on his defensive style of play or how much his defense will translate, I should say. So that's kind of the book on him. My expectation is he's probably going to crack the rotation, maybe about 10 minutes a game. If he doesn't crack the rotation, that's fine. When you're talking about a recruit in that range of like 150 in the country, I don't pay attention to recruiting rankings and treat them as gospel, but I will present some of the other Syracuse basketball players of recent lineage that have been in that neighborhood of recruiting rankings, and this will speak to some of them hit, some of them miss, and that's kind of what you're getting when you're talking about a player in the recruiting ranking level of Ryan Mesh. You go back to last season, there was a point guard with a very similar recruiting ranking on the Syracuse basketball roster who has since hit the transfer portal after not playing much last year, and that's the Australian Luke Fennell. Luke Fennell was, according to 24/7 Sports, 134th in the class last year. Again, Ryan Mesh, 141 in this class. Not apples to apples, maybe, but again, I'm just presenting. Here are the players that were in that ballpark, and you can take this information for how you want. You can obviously point to a couple players that were success stories here. There's also going to be some players like Luke Fennell that really didn't work out. Justin Taylor was 170 in his class in 2022. That one obviously didn't work out. But then you got Kadir Copeland, 194 in the recruiting rankings on 24/7 Sports in the 2022 class. Copeland maybe didn't work out totally at Syracuse, but he was ahead, I'd say, even at Syracuse, and he became an even bigger hit and an all-ACC caliber player this past year at NC State. And some of you would quickly point out, with good coaching, maybe there's a better chance of a player in the 150 range hitting. Woody Newton in 2020, remember that name? He was 134 in his class that year. Frank Anselm in 2020 was 162. Book is kind of mixed on both of those guys. 2019, we had the great success story of Jesse Edwards, who became probably $1 million recruit. No, I guess not, because the market hadn't gotten as crazy as it is now. If Jesse Edwards is in the portal this year, he'd probably be worth $3 million, but I don't think it was quite $1 million when he transferred to West Virginia. Regardless, he was 134 in his class in 2019, and it was obviously a success story for Jesse Edwards at the college level. Took some time, developmental project, stayed at Syracuse for a little bit, which you hardly see guys do now, but it was a success story. Bryson Goodine, who bounced around a ton, book on him was kind of mixed. you could maybe form your own opinions there. He was 152 in the 2019 class. And then you got Joe Girard, who maybe is and isn't the best comp for Ryan Mesh. I don't think there's really a good comp, and I don't think comparing him to Joe Girard is fair. But his recruiting ranking was similar, and he was a New York State high school product. Joe Girard came in with more accolades from a points per game perspective because of the competition he was going up against. Obviously, I'm not really comparing the two of them, but I will say that Joe Girard was 173 in the 2019 class. And again, there's some hits, there's some misses in guys in that range. So, Ryan Mesh, will he be a part of the rotation? I think so. I think a small part of the rotation, probably. Maybe a decent part of the rotation is his ceiling, like 20 minutes a game is his ceiling, and his floor is probably somewhere in the neighborhood of what we saw from Luke Fennell this past year. I think he's a better player than Luke Fennell right now, but without having seen him play in person, even though he is from right around here, and I've heard good things about him from people that have seen him play in person, it's really hard for me to confidently say floor, ceiling, one way or the other. I do think that this is the type of pickup that obviously is in line with what Jerry wants to bring in, and it makes a whole lot of sense, and it's good to see that it is officially official. A lot of you are probably wondering, are they going to bring in another point guard? Is Garway Dual truly the starting point guard next year? And I understand that he has kind of become almost the William Kyle of last year's Syracuse basketball offseason. His numbers, his advanced numbers really look solid. There were a lot of power conference schools after him. His raw numbers don't do much for you. And there's a lot of Providence fans and Seton Hall fans that are probably telling you right now that they should not have gone after Garway Dual. He had a nice year last year at McNeese State. I know it's hard on paper to get too excited about Syracuse's starting point guard being a McNeese State transfer, just as it was hard to get too excited about William Kyle, a guy who did not play much for UCLA the year before, to be the quote-unquote starting center for Syracuse last year. We had a similar conversation around William Kyle last year. It was, man, this guy would be a great backup center, but I'm not so sure I'm that confident he should be the starting center. That was the reaction among most of the fans after William Kyle committed from UCLA last year after a down year at UCLA. I'm not saying Garway Dual is going to be exactly like William Kyle this year, but I do think if you look under the hood, if you looked at the advanced numbers, some of these things are encouraging. My read is he probably is going to be the starting point guard next year. And don't just look at what he is at face value. Try and identify why he could maybe translate a little bit more to Syracuse. And I think that's what the staff is banking on. I think he was wanted by a lot of other power conference schools, and the Orange got him. And it seems like the backcourt is crowded. It seems like they need to transition their attention to the front court. And we're probably going to see Garway Dual start game one next year for Syracuse at the point guard position. If you have thoughts on that, if you think that's the wrong way to go, we can certainly discuss that. I'm not saying he's going to be as much of a success story as William Kyle, but I do think we have to be open-minded to some extent and see this roster come together and watch them in the first couple games and form our opinions from there. Garway Dual is probably going to be a fan favorite, the way he plays, the way he gets up and down and creates steals defensively. I think it's possible that we look back in a year from now and we say, yeah, that guy really fit his role. He was a great competitor. He was a fan favorite, similar to how we look at William Kyle. After a year before, or basically last offseason, we weren't really thinking that great about William Kyle as the starting center. 315-437-7644. If you'd like to call in, we'll hit our first time out. That was our Burdick BMW of Cicero and Burdick Toyota opening drive. You're listening to Drive Time on ESPN Radio, QSportsTalk.com.
Mother's Day brunch in the...
Yeah, superintendent at Calvary Club. Analytics do love him. McNeese State's backup point guard is our starting point guard. Yep. He's better than a decent defender, as Dave and Stonington called him earlier today. I don't want to totally go off of what I was saying earlier because I'm with you guys that the roster on paper does look a little underwhelming. But I do think we have to just come to the realization that some of that is Syracuse is not swimming in the waters of some of the elite teams in NIL, and they're going to have to go about this in a different manner. So, did I call him the backup point guard at McNeese? I meant to say starter. Sorry if I misspoke. He obviously didn't start every game last year, but I should not have said backup point guard if I did. Yeah, remember Jaquan Carlos was all-conference defensive team, too. Not saying he's Carlos. He's actually a legit very good defender. And he has played power conference basketball before and been a very good defender at the power conference level before. Donnie at Kentucky today. Those are the reports. Maybe going to UConn next. Seems like it's Kentucky, UConn, Bama for him. Michigan did have great front court play. They seem to be part of the reason why the market has exploded for front court guys. Yeah, they definitely need at least two bigs, Joseph Meehan. Roster probably will be less talented than last year, but I think we learned that obviously coaching matters too. Like I said all along, they had an NIL to make the tournament last year. I think the fear is their NIL might actually, based on the numbers this year and the percentage increase that we were talking about earlier from Evan Miyakawa, 65% increase in the market, the NIL might be worse compared to other teams in the league and other power conference teams than it was last year for Syracuse. Yeah, I saw that Super Cat. We've talked about that with Evan Miyakawa. He definitely likes him. Trying to get Evan on the shows this week, but he's a busy guy, I'm sure. Yeah, he would be up there, Philly. He would make bank. Yeah, on 3, he is ranked a little bit better. I just stick to 24/7 Sports because I like their database and it's a little cleaner. But again, recruiting rankings don't mean everything. Look at the offer sheet more. Yeah, I saw 1.6 for Freeman last year, San Diego Cuse. I don't know what to believe, but I think you're in the ballpark, certainly. I'm guessing, too. Kind of what I was saying with Philly earlier. I'm not trying to go at any of you guys. I'm guessing on all of these numbers, but when you guys throw out numbers, I'm kind of trying to decipher, are they sourced or are they numbers that I should take seriously, or are you just kind of saying it because that's your guess as well? Because we can play that game all day of just kind of guessing, but I understand that all of you kind of get that. Yeah, we're all guessing. Yeah, he did have a nice game against Vandy. 2 for 4 from 3, you're right, yeah. That stood out. Yeah, I agree, Philly. Their 1 through 3 is sneaky good, but still probably not as talented as last year if the roster is tightened up with like some solid bigs, no star. That's fine though. We roll along with Drive Time Tuesday afternoon, sunny in Syracuse right now. So we get into spring, lacrosse season in full force, but we are talking portal. Transfer portal season right now. We're at the midway point of the transfer portal, the official timeline of it. April 7th it opened, April 21st it closes. You can't be a new player entering the portal as of April 22nd. Jerry McNamara and his staff hard at work right now trying to put together the best roster possible, and it seems like they have identified some guys that have good advanced numbers, and they're trying to, maybe you could call this moneyball it a little bit and try and put together the pieces that fit the best, that match the culture they need, and certainly they are doing all they can, I'm sure, to bring in the best players possible out of the portal. That goes without being said. Let's go to Gavendo on our Twitch chat. I gave him a shout out earlier because He was helping us decipher who is the big on campus today. That is Owen Freeman from Creighton, a transfer from Creighton, started his career at Iowa. What's up, Matt? How we doing?
Looks like we're putting a lot of pieces together, and I think you stole my my tagline, no cannonballs just yet. I think we're going to...
Yeah.
I don't know if we're going to get one. I think we're going to get 2 decent centers instead of 1 great center, and I think we're going to get probably 1 more guard, and I think we're set. I don't really know how much room there is, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I would agree. I don't think that the smoke is really there for us to believe as of this moment that a star or a multi-million-dollar player or a huge get is even out there, really, and Syracuse is going to bring them in. I don't think the Mingo brothers or someone like that is happening, and that's unfortunate and maybe something that people don't want to hear. But we've talked about this. I think if they were going to bring in a stud, you probably start your transfer portal class with that, or you try and nab that player first so that it builds momentum. I don't see them in the last week of the transfer portal kind of doing an about face and proving that they were after bigger names than we thought all along. The reports out there, and even bringing in Owen Freeman, it seems like that indicates kind of what waters they're swimming in for a center.
Yeah, and it doesn't even mean that he's going to commit or they're going to offer. He's just visiting, and I think that's the big thing, too, is you got Fullback out there. Do you think, like Jerry just said, hey, go out there, get your price, know your worth, and come hit me back, and we'll put something together for you?
That I don't know. I mean, just speculation. Obviously, Francis Fullback from day one of Jerry taking the job has made sense. I still feel like he does make a lot of sense, but right now it feels like he probably is wanted by other schools too. So we'll just have to see how it plays out. If they bring in Freeman and Fullback, again, that's not going to be a cannonball. That's not going to be a splash. But that's 2 more solid players. And at the very least, it seems like they are targeting the right players that fit Jerry's style of play, and they have a plan here. They have a process. They've identified guys that they view are undervalued for X, Y, and Z reason. And I do trust Jerry to get the team to overachieve after we watched a roster last year that certainly underachieved.
He'll be good. He's looking for ballers. He's looking for people who are going to give 110%, and, you know, we hope that that's what he's bringing in. So appreciate you, Jim. Thank you.
All right, Govendo. Thanks again for the tip earlier as we deciphered that it is Owen Freeman. The Creighton center started his career at Iowa, coming off an injury-riddled season a little bit last year for Creighton. But certainly he seems like a solid pickup, not a pickup that's going to lead everyone to call in and say the Final Four is back on and Syracuse basketball is 100% back. But he seems like a solid pickup. And I think they have a sneaky good roster right now if you're paying attention, if you believe in the advanced numbers, which you probably should. Best player in the country last year for the best team, at least. The national championship team played for UAB last year. And the numbers jumped out last year that he was a huge pickup in the portal, and it worked out that way. So the school is one thing. There's a lot that goes into evaluating these players. Hopefully Jerry has a better eye for talent, a better eye for what fits in his scheme, and then he can coach them up a little bit better, because it does feel like right now the roster is trending towards a roster that on paper is probably not going to have a lot of projections to make the NCAA tournament, which not a lot of people are going to be willing to project Syracuse to make the NCAA tournament after missing it 5 straight years anyway. Let's go to Jay in Baldwinsville. He's next up on Drive Time. Hey, Jay.
Hey, Tim. Just out walking the dog, and I'm listening to you guys. And correct me if I'm beating a dead horse here or if this has already been talked, but it seems like in today's NIL, you're going to have there's 3 ways the program can attack it, getting players. And it's based upon what they have in their NIL kitty, right? So you got the blue bloods. You know, you talk about Louisville. I think they paid $9 million or a little over $9 million for 2 players. So you're going to have the programs that have the big money, big pockets, and they're just going to go out and buy 5 guys, right? Basically, right? So clearly, Syracuse is not in that realm. Then I think the next thing you've got is the other thought is that you go out and, like for the schools with Syracuse NIL money, is maybe you go out and buy one guy that's considered a splash guy or a 4 or 5 star guy that's in the portal, and you grab him, and then you pay less money, obviously, and put some complementary players around him. Or the third way, which I think Jerry might be doing, is that you you go in and you basically kind of do the Oakland A's Moneyball thing back in the day, for teams that like Syracuse, like the Oakland A's, they're not a major program, they're not a major market, so they have to do it kind of a unique way, and that's go out, look at the analytics, try and get the best player for the position that they need for the right money. He might be a little bit off the beaten path, kind of like the kid we got from McNeese State, and then you get those guys in, and then you just coach the hell out of them. And I think that the difference this year is that, you know, I think there's no doubt, and you've been using that term, and I agree with it, is that you go out and you find, you know, guys that have talent, but also they have an unbelievable motor, right? And so and I think that's really what it all comes down to. I really do.
Yeah, and a lot of fans last year were complaining when we brought up NIL, and I think I was pretty clear there wasn't an excuse for Coach Autry last season. Maybe you could use it as an excuse 2 years ago or early on in his tenure. A lot of fans were complaining, look, it's not all about NIL. Coaching matters a lot, and scheming them up and running the right plays and et cetera is going to help. So let's see. I mean, certainly that's going to be put to the test a little bit more, it seems like, next year than what we saw last year. And I also think you're right, Jay, that you broke it down in three ways. I think they kind of have to go way 3 this year, and it's tough for them to go way 2 because you only had 2 returning players. So you got to bring in a lot of guys, and knowing that, you do kind of naturally have to space out your budget. It's hard to bring in a big that maybe warrants 30 or 40% of your budget. Like we're seeing Miami do that. Miami has gone way 2 of we're going to spend big on a big 2 or a big 3. And Miami has 2 players right now that are top 20 in this portal class committed from the 24/7 sports portal class. So they're going to be really good next year, probably. And I think that's a good strategy, and I'm all for that strategy going forward. I think it was also tough for GMAC to do that in year 1, which is 2 returning players.
Yep, and real quick, and the only concern I have with the 2 players that he brought back, first of all, I don't have any concerns with Sadiq as far as the effort and the motor and everything else like that. Now, listen, we all got to be honest about Cayenne. The one thing I think about Cayenne, this is a big summer for him, okay? Number one, he's got to get his mentals right because, let's be honest, there was a couple of times that you watched him on the sideline when things weren't going right, and his body language, he would check out mentally. Right, and I know GMAC is not going to put up with that. The kid's got to stay, so I'm a little worried about him. I hope he comes back into camp. I'm not so much worried about his shot. I want him to work on his body.
Yeah.
He needs to put on at least 10 to 15 pounds of muscle. He's got to get in there. So those are the things they're banking on those 2 guys. I mean, those were 2 pieces that they wanted to keep. I don't have a problem with Sadiq. I think the kid plays with a lot of heart, and the effort's there, and he never quits. The one that I want to see have a big summer and needs to have a big summer is Cayenne. So I'm very interested when he gets back. He's probably going to spend the whole summer up here, I would imagine, or he's going to go, to a personal trainer. But I want to see what his body looks like when he comes back.
Yeah,
so.
And Melo's been talking a big game about he'll be in the gym with Jerry, and that's going to help him a lot. So let's see if it does. I think you're spot on. He needs to add some muscle for sure. So thanks for checking in, Jay.
All right, yep, take care.
All right.
Thanks, Tim.
Hope your dog's doing all right as well. Jay on a walk with his dog. Love it. He's probably listening on QSportsTalk.com. Like we told you at the start of the show, if you're on the go, if you're walking the dog, if you're out for a nice stroll on this beautiful sunny afternoon in Syracuse, fun to get to say that, cue us up, QSportsTalk.com, Q Sports Talk on the YouTube page. We'll get to Mike and Manlius as we return. Do have to work in a break here. 437-7644 if you'd like to call in. We're reacting to the transfer portal, midway point of the men's basketball transfer portal. We'll continue that conversation as we continue on Drive Time here on ESPN Radio and QSportsTalk.com.
Did you miss Drive Time?
Yeah, that Super Cat, you're right. That you have to have everything kind of click to get Syracuse back to where we want it to be. I hear you on that. You're saying the obvious answer is you need D, all of the above, coaches, NIL, players, etc. Yeah. I mean, I think we're also just talking about, like, yes, you need everything, but we're talking about getting Syracuse back to the tournament right now, which they had enough money last year to make the tournament. They didn't. They have enough money this year to make the tournament. They might have less money relative to what the market is. We can discuss that. But, we all think they've got a better coach as it stands right now. How good is the coach is going to be put to the test maybe a little bit. And how good is their evaluation and scouting? Because it's very possible. I mean, think about our reaction to the portal last year. I've said this before, but we all were doing cartwheels over Nate George. That didn't work out. We all thought, not all, I shouldn't generalize as much, but plenty of people were kind of down on William Kyle. Is he starter good? And he was one of the better success stories. And, Nate King's, the book on him was, can he get to the rim that much? I don't know. Is he going to finish at the rim that good? He was very effective at getting downhill and very effective at scoring around the rim. He was their best player last year at finishing around the rim. So sometimes things come out or the evaluation changes. And, guys have breakout years. Aiden Tobiasen is a late bloomer. Freshman year to sophomore year, he made a big leap. Could he make a big leap in a junior year? Garway Dual seemed to improve his offensive game at McNeese. Is that just because he played in the Southland Conference versus the Big East? Certainly that's a part of it, but maybe he improves and is ready to take a step up. Like, all these guys were evaluating their numbers last year. You get them in a situation with a good coach, it's possible that they exceed expectations. And I guess the conversation then becomes, how much do they have to exceed expectations for us to feel like it's truly a tournament team? Only person that knew Kings could get to the rim was Kings. Yeah, they didn't do that enough. Oh, we got someone else walking the dog. Nice. In the YouTube chat. Yeah, and Doty they probably got for under market value, so that's good. Kyan is under market value, you'd assume, because of his dad. And, my feel on that is Kyan's probably not getting paid any NIL. I'm sure he's making money from some of his national deals, but I don't think that they're really dipping too much into their roster budget to keep Kyan. So there's a couple guys already that you're kind of getting a bang for your buck, and you just got to get a bang for your buck up and down the roster. We don't have the money. Everyone was yelling at me when I said that last year. I was talking about NIL is the most important thing going forward. I'm kidding, but I don't know. Do you feel like there was a reason we were discussing this stuff, and it's unfortunate that I do feel like a broken record. I say it all the time, and NIL we don't want to talk about, but it comes up every show, and that part's annoying, but it's not going away. Yeah, she didn't play here. She was committed for a hot sack, Ryan. Around 3.5 or 3 mil, Philly. I must have missed. We were talking about it. I think I said 4, and you rightfully corrected me that double what I was saying is like 3.5. I would say you're probably pretty close with 3 in my mind, but again, I'm not sure. I want to make it clear, like, I wasn't saying you're wrong. I just took offense when you're coming at me and saying I'm wrong, because I'm trying to form educated guesses. And like I said earlier, I think to some extent we're all guessing. That's why I was kind of just genuinely asking, do you have sources on it? And I know you said you kind of have some knowledge of other guys, but I don't know if that's strong enough to be like, we're in a much better spot than, or they're making more than you think. Rolling along on Drive Time. Nice afternoon in central New York. Vibes are high outside, I'm sure. We got some dog walkers calling in. Some dog walkers in the YouTube chat. Good to see that as the portal season rolls along. We'll continue that conversation. We can get into some of the reporting today about just how much the market has gone up, according to Evan Miyakawa, and what that means for how much money Syracuse might still have left in their budget, where Syracuse fits in the equation of NIL in the ACC. We can discuss that. More NIL talk. I'm sure we're all excited for that. I do feel like a broken record. Every episode, or every show, I don't really want to talk NIL. And then NIL works its way into the conversation. That's college sports right now. Let's go to Mike in Manlius. He's been waiting patiently. Hey, Mike.
Hey, Tim. How's it going?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I like the weather, like you just said. I like the weather. All right, so bloop and a blast and a prayer today.
Okay.
All right, the bloop is this. Can you guess who on the Angels is my favorite player on the Angels?
Reed Detmers. I have no idea.
Mike Trout. Mike and
Trout.
then remember my nickname, Trout.
Should have been
Trout.
my first pick.
Okay, so that's the bloop.
Okay.
The blast. Okay, 4 words. Judge Jackfest, Grissom Mayhem. and here's the prayer, Tim. This is serious. Our father at church is having a medical procedure tomorrow. I ask everybody who's listening to this to pray for him. And I ask that with all my heart, please pray for Father. Thank you, Tim.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear about that, and thoughts and prayers for you and your family, Mike. We got a bloop and a blast and a prayer from Mike, and Mike Trout did hit 2 homers last night, right? I think Trout homered twice, Judge homered twice. There were 7 total home runs. That leads us into our Yankees update, brought to you by the Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus. Every day we'll be keeping you tabs on the Yankees, and where they're at. They did get off the schneid. They snapped a 5-game losing skid and got a win on a wild pitch walk-off at Yankee Stadium in Game 1 of the series against the Angels last night. They'll be playing the Angels again this evening. That's our Yankees update, brought to you by the Wildcat Sports Pub. Mike in Manlius, known for his bloop and a blast, and we're thinking about him and his family as his father goes into a procedure tomorrow, I guess. So thanks for checking in, Mike. Let's get into what I was teasing just a moment ago. NIL market value and just the market value for college basketball and how much it has changed from last offseason to this offseason. Evan Miyakawa, who is privy to some of the information of what these players are getting and has a pretty good grasp on this question, market value, roster budget, etc. We've talked so much about the market's exploding. These guys are making more than they were last year. They're making way more than they were 2 years ago. We mentioned Jesse Edwards, who I think the report around Jesse, I could be misremembering, was like $750,000. Now that's just like a role player. I mean, it's crazy how much Jesse would have made if he was a portal big this offseason. Evan Miyakawa says, based on his stats and a statistical breakdown, the market value has gone up 65% from last year. That means a player that was valued at $1 million last season, $1.65 million this offseason. To put it in terms that apply to Syracuse, we think Syracuse's budget was around $7.5 million last year. That's rev share plus NIL expenditures. If it is truly a 65% increase in the market from last year to this year, you're talking Syracuse would need to be about $12.4 million in their roster budget this year to be about what they were last year. The chatter last year was 8 to 10 million gets you in the game. 8 to 10 million is kind of what you need to be competitive at or near the top of your Power 4 conference. If it is truly a 65% increase, like Evan Miyakawa is saying, and even if it's ballpark a 65% increase, you're talking about 13 to 16.5 million gets you in the game this year from a roster budget standpoint. Those numbers are shocking. It's hard to fathom. And even if you feel that the $9 million report from Matt Norlander of about where Syracuse is going to be from a roster budget standpoint or what they're projecting to be at when they hired Jerry McNamara, even if you feel that's off or that number has gone up since they brought in Jerry McNamara and they've done the back the GMAC campaign, I should say, and Vinny Lobdell, who was on our airwaves yesterday, has been rallying some troops to support GMAC. Let's say that's gone up. And Vinny Lobdell said yesterday, yeah, you probably got to be better than $9 million. I think it's going up, and I think we're all realizing that in real time this year. Even if it's gone up to 10, 11, I have not seen any reports that Syracuse is at $12 million, which is about what they need to be comparable to last year. So, again, the numbers have gone up, but relative to competition, it feels like Syracuse is lagging behind a little bit still. And I think we're seeing that in some of the visitors and some of the general news and rumors about who is coming on campus and who Syracuse is targeting and bringing in out of the transfer portal. Let's go to Nick in Las Vegas. He's next up on Drive Time. What's up, Nick?
Hey, Tim. What's going on, bud? How are you?
I'm doing well. What's on your mind?
So, a couple of things, and it kind of all plays together. But so I think what's happening is, and Jerry did this as a player, and I think he's going to do it again as a coach. I think he's betting on himself. I think he is going to make defense a priority, and I think he's going to kind of take a page out of Tony Bennett's book a little bit. You know, like Miami, you mentioned, have the 2 top 20 portal guys. I feel like Jerry's going to pride himself on locking those guys down, hence do all, right? And I think he's going to, the guys he's recruiting, like this Tobiasen kid. Did you hear that interview he had with Mike Waters?
I did, yeah. Great interview. Shout out to Mike.
The kid fits the culture that Jerry's looking for, right? Hard, tough-nosed. And I think he's going to do just enough, you know, defensively where he can shut down some of these teams, win some games that he's not supposed to win, and hopefully get him back in the tournament. But I think this is just year one, because I think long-term what's going to end up happening is something's going to be done with NIL to a point where it's going to have some sort of regulations, and then everybody can compete. Because like you just said, with the money they're spending, and they may not even be equal to what they were last year based off of the increase, you know, but I think something's going to be done with NIL where it's going to be regulated, and then everybody kind of even the playing field a little bit more. What do you think?
I sure hope so, because I'm tired of talking about it, and I'm tired of anytime I bring it up, it's such a hot topic, and people feel like I'm covering for the coach or something. It's not that. It's just this is really important, and I think you're right. It has made the playing field tilted and uneven, and it's not good for college basketball. So I think I'm the 1,000th person to say that they need to make changes, and we need solutions, and we need to regulate this thing for sure. So I hope you're right. I also would add, Nick, that there's not going to be a lot of patience in year one, and I think Jerry knows that, and I think he said as much. So even if the NIL is a big part of maybe them not getting to the tournament or not being quite as good as we think in year one, even if Jerry overperforms what the roster talent level is and they win more games than they're supposed to, there's just not going to be a lot of kindness around him as the head coach. There's going to be a lot of complaining if Syracuse misses the tournament for the 6th straight year, and I totally get that as well.
I do too, but I think the one thing that we have to also keep in mind, and I think a caller called in yesterday and was trying to go over some numbers with you and how much money they had left with the budget, but Cayenne and Sadiq weren't really equated into that number yesterday.
Sure.
And I think they paid more for them than they're giving credit to, but I also think there's a reason for that, because the freshman to sophomore jump is usually one of the biggest jumps, right? And with better coaching and added size, and you got to remember, though, I don't want to be misquoted, but were they top 30, top 50 recruits last year, right? So
right around that,
those are your big splashes if they pan out.
Yeah, I think Cayenne is a unique case where I would not be surprised if he's not really pulling from their roster budget, but he is striking national deals that we know about. And, you know, he's obviously such a unique case with Carmelo and the wealthy family that he comes from. So setting him aside, I think certainly Sadiq White required them going into the piggy bank quite a bit to bring him back. So, yeah. You have to take into account the entire roster. I mean, Ryan Mesh isn't cheap. No one's cheap anymore, you know? Like, I don't know what he's making, but you pulled together some decent money to bring in a freshman, to bring in any player that is any bit of talented right now, and that all adds up. And we're talking about 8 players now that are committed on the roster for next year with the addition of Ryan Mesh. So even if the lowest player is $100,000, I mean, those numbers add up. I think certainly their budget is is decently full at this point, and we're seeing that based on, Owen Freeman, I don't think is going to be a huge addition from a price point standpoint if they go that route, but it's not like they're bringing...
everything that we're seeing, though, he's going to be at least probably 1.5, right?
It's hard to say. I mean, I think he was around that last year. Again, I'm just guessing on these numbers and just reading through the tea leaves a little bit, which is dangerous, and we're all guessing, and that's what I go back to. I think we need to not treat just stuff we see online as gospel, because I'll use my guy Eric Devendorf, who I love, but he threw out Tyler Betsy, maybe was making $700,000 last year, is at least what he was kind of implying. I don't know if that's true, but I wouldn't take it as gospel that is 100% right. I just feel like there's so much chatter out there, and I'll be the first person to tell you that we're all guessing here. I don't know for sure, but yeah, the market value and what an educated guess would be, it kind of depends on how good you feel about his injury last year and that he has recovered from that. But he was making big money, I'm sure, coming off of a great season at Iowa when he transferred to Creighton. His defensive metrics are tremendous. I think he probably is not going to be cheap, certainly.
So I think we're in agreement then that defense is the focus and they're going to be budget friendly, and let's hope NIL goes to some sort of regulation for next year.
Yeah, I hope so. That would make everyone's lives a little bit easier, and I'm counting on that too. I don't want to see Syracuse get outpriced. And again, we talked about, could they be top third in the ACC? They would have to have leapfrog teams, I think we can confidently say, from last year, and nothing about the way this transfer portal is going makes you think they're top third in the ACC. That's just me being
realistic. And if that's
realistic.
truly going to be the case, they're going to be at $14 million. So,
yeah, we'll see. Thanks for checking in, Nick.
Tim, good talking to you, man. We'll talk soon.
Of course, always fun chatting with Nick from Las Vegas. Final break. If you want to call in, you can. 437-7644 for ESPN 44. Can we get another dog walker to call in? Is there another dog walker out there? There's someone in our YouTube chat. Beautiful afternoon in Syracuse. We're talking transfer portal here on Drive Time.
Be sure to tune.
Paul McCoy.
Tim Leonard.
How are you? Oh, I misheard him. Yeah, honestly, Velcro in the house. Let me catch up on the chat. Guyan doesn't take money. That's kind of what I was hinting at, Cavendo. That's my read on it, too. YouTube chat. Let's make fun of the Yankees. Sure. I kind of did that. Jim Boeheim probably never been to Green Lakes, SMH. I find that very hard to believe. But why are we even talking about that? That's wild. Love Green Lakes, though. No free ads. Tony Bennett style and the way they're going to prioritize defense. I think they're bringing in defensive guys, but I don't think they're Tony Bennett here. I mean, their roster doesn't strike me as having a huge lead one way or the other. I don't know what most guesses are by people in here, Philly. I think, obviously, the reports were $9 million, and we were all hoping that was exceeded. Like I've said, I'm not sure they really know exactly. It's all based on how much does Vinny Lobdell and crew bring in, probably, to get to that number. They're probably projecting a little. Kevin Sweeney brought up a good point earlier today. You got to be flexible because these budgets probably aren't set in stone. But yeah, I mean, that that's a little higher than I would guess based on these names we're seeing in the portal. And I, again, am of the camp that this is a sneaky good roster that probably costs more than people realize, but it's pretty clear they don't have as much money as Miami. I'll put it that way. And if they're truly top third in the ACC, they probably would have had to leapfrog Miami. And I don't know. There's a difference between power conference starters and mid-major starters to some extent. I think they've identified good ones, and Creighton would be a power conference starter in a way, depending on how you look at it. If they get that guy. Yamari Hatcher did look solid. Oh, that'd be fun, Dom. I'll let you know I'm often down there for very quick trips nowadays. Because it's, lacrosse on Saturday. I'm there for one night. So I'm kind of crashing with the fam as much as possible or hanging with them. Yeah, maybe San Diego Q's. Hopefully, if an Impact player wants to come to Syracuse, there are donors they can go to. What are we talking about with Kev? I can't even keep up. Kidney? Oh, no. Kev, you got a kidney issue? I'm genuinely just trying to figure this out in the chat. I don't even think Kyan's starting on this roster, Tronic, so I wouldn't guess he's the leading scorer next year. If he is, then he took a big leap. Probably a good call, Dom. Thanks, Philly. Good tip. Welcome back into Drive Time. Sunny afternoon in Syracuse, talking Orange basketball, talking transfer portal as we wrap up the show. Tim Leonard with you at 437-7644. You can call in. Let's see, what have we talked about on the show this afternoon? Let's catch you up if you're just tuning in. Owen Freeman, Creighton transfer center, is visiting Syracuse today. We were able to confirm that. We discussed him a little bit. I can certainly get into him a little bit more on the show tomorrow. Done a bit of a deep dive, analytical breakdown of his game, and hope some of you are enjoying when I dive into the numbers on some of these guys that are transfer portal visitors and such for Syracuse men's basketball. Ryan Mesh has committed. We discussed that. And what will be his role next year for Syracuse. If you had to pin me down, maybe 10 minutes a game next year off the bench as a backup point guard. I think he's a promising young player. We talked about how the numbers are out there, that there is a 65% increase in the budget, market value of NIL and roster capital from last offseason to this offseason. And is that contributing to Syracuse maybe not bringing in as big a names as we thought? I don't want to go complete 180 on this. I understand that early on in the portal, I was kind of the guy saying, let's not panic. I'm sure they'll bring in some stars. They'll bring in some big names. And I may have been off on that, honestly. It feels like this roster is not going to get to as talented as last year's roster. But a lot of you were arguing and calling in a lot last year that the coach had a big say in it. We'll see how much an improvement maybe in the coaching staff and the overall X's and O's of the coaching staff can improve the overall win total next year. Could be wrong. Maybe they bring in some cannonball splashes towards the end of the portal. I would love to be wrong on that. We'll see. But even Owen Freeman, the Creighton center, I'm sure he's going to cost a good amount, like we just discussed with Nick. I think there's a lot to like about his game, and we'll do a deep dive on him tomorrow maybe and see if more news comes out on that front, or maybe other visitors who are just following this day by day in the portal. But even someone like him indicates that it's not as if they're sitting on $4 or $5 million and they've been waiting to make this big splash. They just have not been swimming in the waters of some of the other teams at the top of the ACC. And that's the reality of the situation right now. Whether that is all the doing of the budget, whether there's more to it, I'm not sure, but it feels like the budget is having a pretty strong say in that. I will say Aiden Tobiasen, he was on that great Mike Waters podcast we talked about in the last segment, Inside Syracuse Basketball Podcast. Hat tip to our friend Mike Waters, who got the intel that Aiden Tobiasen told him he took Zoom calls with Creighton, Louisville, Cincinnati, and Clemson, and did go on that visit to Syracuse after a Zoom call with Syracuse as well. Don't know if any of those schools truly offered him, but those schools were interested in him. And again, I go back to look at who wanted him and who did Syracuse beat out. That should form your opinion more so than, GMAC's bringing in a guy from Temple. That's the best he can do. It's like Jalen Cox, great example. Colgate. Why would you bring in the Colgate point guard? Well, the Colgate point guard is on a visit to Kentucky right now. Or maybe it was yesterday. I don't even know. But he's on other visits to Maryland and legitimate schools. So why would you bring in the UAB big from last year? Well, he became one of the best players in the country for Michigan. There's more to it, guys. We got to look at the numbers with this. Some shout-outs before we wrap up the show this afternoon. PLL draft tonight. Shout out to Joey Spallina, hoping he is the number one pick. We shall see on that front, but it seems like he would be a logical number one pick. Shout out to Luke Roa of the SU men's lacrosse team, ACC Offensive Player of the Week. He might also be a PLL draft pick tonight. Think about Finn Thompson, Michael Leo, Billy Juan. They could all hear their names called as members of the Premier Lacrosse League next season. Shout out to Miami. We brought them up earlier. They brought in 2 top 25 players in the portal. I do like their strategy of going in on stars, building around them. Syracuse clearly did not leapfrog them in NIL budget based on who they are bringing in and who Syracuse is bringing in out of the portal. Shout out to Tyler Betsy. He has found a home at BYU. I'm sure he's getting paid handsomely because every college athlete is getting paid handsomely, it feels like now. Men's basketball athlete, at least. And feels like about the spot that we thought for him. Solid school. He'll probably be a bench role player like he was at Syracuse. And a standstill three-point shooter. And not much else. And he's probably making more money at BYU than he would have made at Syracuse. Donnie Freeman is down to maybe UConn, Kentucky, and Alabama. He's been on a visit at Kentucky, and I think there are some reports or some rumors or whispers that he could be visiting at UConn. Also some rumors that Nate Oates came up and paid him a visit at Syracuse. We'll see who he picks, but clearly Donnie Freeman is going to go to a big-time school. Shout out to Ryan Daly. Apparently, according to the Inside Syracuse Basketball podcast we mentioned with Mike Waters when Aiden Tobiasen was on with him, also, Mike McAllister wrote a good article on this earlier today on CuseNation.com. Piecing it together through that, Ryan Daly was the first college coach to reach out to Aiden Tobiasen in a way. He was working at UAlbany, saw him at an event. UAlbany was out of roster spots, but he liked his game so much, he said, I'm going to try and set you up at Temple. I know the coaching staff there, and doing a good deed has come full circle. Daly was one of the first guys to call him couple hours after he entered the portal, according to Tobiasen, and he was instrumental, it seems like, in bringing in Aiden Tobiasen on the visit and locking him in to be one of the better portal ads so far for SU men's basketball. Shout out to Pete Corsiniti. He is officially on the staff and back, making the transition from not 1, not 2, but now 3 head coaches he's worked for as a Syracuse men's basketball staffer. His official title is a new title of sorts, Associate AD of Men's Basketball. He will lead, mentor, and develop key program staff, including the Director of Basketball Operations, Director of Player Personnel, Director of Engagement, Alumni, and Donors, and Administrative Assistant to the head coach. So I thought he might be the Dobo, Director of Basketball Operations. Seems like he is in a new role that oversees the Dobo and some other positions. Maybe it's Ryan Bury, who was the Dobo at Siena, that is the official Dobo. We'll see. But he's clearly in a role that sort of suits him, and Pete Corsiniti is a hard worker who has been loyal to Syracuse, and I think is a great guy. So happy for him that he has been named officially the Associate AD of the men's basketball program. If you missed it yesterday, Ryan Blackwell clearly on the staff as well, based on a photo from Aiden Tobiasen. Whether he is truly an assistant coach or if he's player development, I'm not sure, but he is a part of the coaching staff, and we kind of expected that all along. That's going to wrap up Drive Time. Thanks for tuning in, as always, and we'll be back tomorrow, 5 to 6 p.m., weekday afternoons here in Central New York. Maybe we'll get some more dog walkers, some more happy people out in the sun tomorrow. We appreciate all of you. We appreciate Paul McCoy for producing, and we'll chat with you tomorrow on ESPN Radio and QSportsTalk.com.